Welcome to This Explainer. We've got an absolutely fascinating breakdown for you today. We're looking at a high-stakes political standoff that literally brought Washington to a grinding halt and seriously threatened to derail the nomination for the top law enforcement job in the country, the Attorney General of the United States. It's this wild, gripping story of power, policy, and just immense political pressure. Let's get right into it.
$1.8 billion. It's a completely staggering figure, isn't it? I mean, that massive amount of taxpayer money was sitting right at the dead center of this whole crisis. It wasn't just some boring budget line item. It essentially became the ultimate bargaining chip in a game of political chicken that totally tested the limits of party loyalty and the actual mechanics of our government.
So, the big question we're answering today is this. How exactly did this massive sum of money bring the Justice Department's top nomination to a complete standstill? I mean, how does a confirmation process go from a sure thing to a full-blown crisis overnight? Okay, let's dive into this. Act 1. The $1.8 billion fund.
To really grasp the magnitude of this standoff, we need to rewind a bit. You see, the spark of this crisis actually started with a completely different legal battle. It all goes back to President Trump's $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS over the alleged mishandling of his tax records. Fast forward to May 18, 2026, and an official order is signed to resolve that lawsuit. But here is the real kicker. The result of that settlement was the creation of a massive $1.8 billion pool of money, officially known as the Anti-Weaponization Fund.
Now, what's really interesting here is the specific definition and purpose of that fund. It was literally designed to compensate individuals who claim to be victims of federal government weaponization. And according to the sources, this specifically included participants in the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot. As you might imagine, the reaction to this was immediate and intense. While supporters saw it as absolutely necessary restitution, critics instantly branded it a slush fund meant to reward political allies using taxpayer dollars.
Which brings us to Act 2, a nomination in jeopardy. Enter Todd Blanche. He was nominated by President Trump to serve as the permanent Attorney General. Now, by all accounts, his professional qualifications for the role weren't even the primary issue. The real issue was that his crucial nomination essentially became a hostage to that $1.8 billion fund we were just talking about. Two senior Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senators John Cornyn of Texas and Thom Tillis of North Carolina, absolutely refused to support his nomination. And because of the math on that committee, they held the deciding votes. No way around it.
So we were now looking at a pure, unadulterated political deadlock. You've got two completely competing, immovable demands. On one side, President Trump publicly defended the fund, calling the potential beneficiaries victims of government abuse whose lives had been ruined. He even escalated the situation by threatening that if the Senate didn't confirm Blanche, the fund would be put back on the table. On the flip side, Senators Cornyn and Tillis drew a hard line in the sand. For them, verbal assurances just weren't going to cut it. They demanded a formal, written guarantee from the administration that the fund was permanently dead before they would even think about casting those deciding votes.
Just to show you exactly how high the political temperatures were running internally within the Republican Party, Senator Tillis fired back publicly, referring to the $1.8 billion as a, quote, payout pot for punks. He added that it would be unfortunate if Blanche, who he actually considered qualified, wasn't confirmed over this whole reversal. It just shows you that the internal party opposition was severe.
All right, let's move into Act 3, the 11th hour deal.
With the nomination literally hanging in the balance for weeks, a late Sunday night resolution finally breaks the stalemate. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche made his decisive move. He posted this formal order on X. And this brilliantly illustrates the definitive legal maneuver required to break the stalemate. He wrote, "The Attorney General's May 18, 2026 order establishing the Anti-Weaponization Fund is rescinded and shall have no force or effect." The Justice Department then immediately followed up by stating, "This order established beyond any doubt that there is no fund." Boom. Done. But tearing up that order was really only part of the solution. Blanche actually had to make two major concessions to secure those votes. Step one was what we just saw, permanently terminating the $1.8 billion fund in writing. But step two was just as crucial to the holdouts. You see, the original May settlement had also included a provision offering President Trump and his family broad immunity from tax audits. The senators wanted strict, ironclad parameters placed on that as well. So the explicit clarification provided in Blanchett's new order was that this tax audit immunity is strictly retroactive. It only applies to the named parties in the original lawsuit, and it absolutely does not protect the president from future tax investigations. Getting that highly specific detail on paper was the absolute final piece of the puzzle needed to satisfy the holdout senators.
Let's wrap this up with Act 4, the bigger political picture.
So why does this specific standoff matter in the grand scheme of government mechanics? Well, the immediate aftermath was incredibly swift. With the written assurances locked in, a spokesperson for Senator Cornyn confirmed the agreement. The immediate political crisis was effectively over, clearing the path for the Senate Judiciary Committee to finally meet and vote on Blanche's nomination that Tuesday. But, while the immediate fire was put out, the smoke definitely lingered. This entire episode laid bare some very deep rifts within the Republican Party and highlighted the immense pressure surrounding controversial appointments.
So the crucial point is how the checks and balances of our system forced a compromise from every single player. Consider the anatomy of this deal. Every single person had to give something up. President Trump secures his preferred nominee for Attorney General, but he sacrifices a $1.8 billion policy initiative he fiercely defended. Senators Cornyn and Tillis, despite being lame duck lawmakers leaving office in January, successfully flexed their constitutional power to force a formal, written policy reversal. And Todd Blanche, well, he secures his path to confirmation, but only by being forced into the incredible position of publicly overruling his own boss, the president, and rescinding an order the president still supported. It's a real political tightrope.
Which leaves us with this final thought. The $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund is officially dead in writing. Blanche is back on track for confirmation, but remember, the president hinted that this idea could eventually be back on the table. The immediate standoff is resolved, but in Washington, the mechanics of power are always in motion. Is the battle truly over? We'll just have to keep watching to find out. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.